Unbelievable discovery. Soldier and K9 unearth hidden truths of a little girl's amazing journey. Jake stepped onto the familiar, cracked pavement of Maple Street, his senses flooded with memories of childhood laughter and summer days that stretched endlessly. Beside him, Max, his loyal K9 partner, sensed the withdrawal in Jake's demeanor, his tail flicking hesitantly. Returning to his small Midwestern hometown after several tours felt surreal, like stepping onto a movie set where he no longer belonged. The vibrant life around him, the friendly waves from neighbors, felt like a veil masking the emotional scars deeply etched into his heart. Haunted by images of combat and loss, Jake hesitated between the warmth of those eager smiles and the weight on his soul. Children played nearby, their carefree laughter echoing in the crisp air and making Jake's chest tighten. He had fought for freedom, yet here he was, unable to shake the feeling of confinement within his own skin. The laughter sharpened into a reminder of life unchanged, while he felt an alien in a world that kept spinning. Each familiar house seemed like a ghost of its former self, comforting yet painfully distant. As they wandered, Jake's eyes fell on the overgrown path leading to a dilapidated house. Memories of Mrs. Thompson surfaced, her gentle voice advising him to dream big, but now her home stood forgotten, swallowed by weeds and neglect. Compelled to investigate, he followed the path, Max leading the way with an urgency Jake struggled to match. The creaking door swung open, revealing dim light filtered through dusty windows. Inside, the air hung heavy with secrets. In the backyard, a rusted trunk called to him like a beacon of inquiry. Jake forced it open, a metal groan echoing through the stillness, and a cascade of letters and sepia-toned photographs spilled forth, intertwining with the bittersweet memories of childhood. Within, he uncovered the story of a little girl named Sarah, who had vanished decades ago. Every letter revealed her family's struggle against poverty, heartbreak, and unshakable grief, drawing a stark parallel between his past and the town's buried shame. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each revelation ignited a fire within Jake, a fierce need to unravel the truth of Sarah's disappearance. Questions spiraled in his mind. How could he confront the silence enforced by those in power, the very individuals whose polished images masked the town's darkest secrets? The moral dilemma churned inside him. Would uncovering Sarah's story put his own family ties at risk? Loyalty pulled against his ambition for justice, a brutal tug-of-war where neither side felt right. The deeper he delved, the more he unearthed fragments of Sarah's life, juxtaposed against harsh truths about his own relationships and the community. Memories of laughter with his mother turned sour as he realized the facade she maintained. Jake met Sarah's estranged grandmother, a feisty woman who offered wisdom steeped in the pain of regret. In her eyes, he saw the hope and despair that mirrored his own post-war existence, her voice a reminder of the healing that comes with acceptance even as it haunted him with self-doubt. Jake stood at a crossroads, his instincts urging him onward, yet tied by unseen strings to the very community that had cast Sarah's memory aside. With old wounds exposed, he felt like a grenade waiting to detonate, torn between pursuing justice for a forgotten girl and tearing apart the fragile fabric of the town he once called home. His heart raced as he faced the impending storm, the possibility of uncovering unspeakable truths bound with his own ties to this place that felt stranger with each passing moment. The photo he'd found, an unsettling connection to a prominent figure in town, hung like a storm cloud over his thoughts. Would digging deeper pull him further from the light or propel him toward a ruthless awakening? Jake felt the pressure mounting, uncertainty swirling like dark clouds above his head as he wondered, was he about to unearth hope, or merely open Pandora's box, threatening to unravel everything he had only just begun to reconnect with? The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the trees, but Jake felt encapsulated in twilight, a fog of confusion pressing in from all sides. The photographs of Sarah still haunted him, their frozen smiles contrasting painfully with his own tangle of emotions. Each discovery about her life threaded closer to his own narrative, yet unraveling that thread felt like pulling at the fabric of his past. One wrong pull could leave him exposed. Jake stepped away from the trunk, purposeful but shaky. He needed to clear his mind, to develop a plan. Max remained alert, sensing his owner's agitation. "Let us take a walk, boy," Jake murmured, trying to anchor his spiraling thoughts. They ventured out of the neglected yard and walked the streets where children played, unaware of the shadows lurking in their parents' pasts. Every house Jake passed served as a reminder of the secrets harbored within the seemingly peaceful community. He couldn't help but wonder how many others shared Sarah's fate, their stories buried beneath layers of silence and denial. Gripping the briefcase of letters tightly, he felt an increasing urgency brewing within him. Step by step, he navigated the path of duality in his life, returning as a soldier tethered to his past, and an investigator grappling with the ghosts of a tragedy that remained unsolved. The local cafe beckoned him with the comforting scent of coffee, and he stepped inside, seeking the solace of routine. The warm atmosphere, busy with patrons, clashed against his internal haze. He recognized a few faces, all of them glancing his way with a mix of recognition and restraint. Jake sat at a corner table, his heart racing redundantly as he peeled open the first letter again. As his eyes scanned the delicate handwriting, Jake felt pulled into Sarah's world, caught in the suffocating grip of her family's despair. The scars of her absence etched deeper into their family's heart bore an uncanny similarity to the scars his own family carried after his return from war. If he uncovered the truth surrounding her disappearance, who would it affect? Families sheltered mountains of regret and buried secrets. Could he shine a light without causing an avalanche? "Jake? Is that you?" The voice belonged to Clara, a childhood friend now grown into someone seemingly untouchable and polished. She approached, her expression wavering between delight and apprehension. "Hey, Clara," Jake responded, forcing a smile that felt foreign. "Been back long?" "Just a few weeks. Saw you the other day, sounded like you've been busy." She gestured vaguely at the letters peeking from his case. Unsure how to share his mission, he deflected. "You know how it is. Just trying to settle back in." Clara hesitated before sitting across from him, her gaze piercing. "You know about Sarah, right? How everyone's kind of, well, let's just say people have their opinions." Jake's pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" "I just mean, some people don't want her story dug back up," she replied, her voice lowering. "It might stir up things better left buried, but if you're looking for truth, Jake, just be careful." Every word from Clara confirmed his unease. The threads connecting him to Sarah and the town were tightening, pulling him toward an unknown reckoning. Her knowledge about the town's dynamics made him question whom to trust, another moral dilemma put before him. Jake stood on a precipice where any choice could have catastrophic consequences. Max barked, startling both of them. It was a wake-up call, a reminder that time was slipping away. He needed resolve now. "Thanks for the heads up," he said, exchanging wary glances. "I'll think about it." As Clara walked away, Jake's thoughts raced, confronting the shadows around him, entwining the past with the urgency of the present. What truths had Sarah's absence etched into the soul of this town, buried beneath layers of time and silence? With the rising tide of danger and discovery, Jake already felt himself morphing, for better or worse. He knew one thing: the time had come to face those buried fears, even as chaos loomed. Drawing a breath, he closed the briefcase and set his jaw. What awaited him next could either bind him tighter or finally set him free. As he left the cafe, he felt an impending confrontation awaiting him. Perhaps it was time to uncover the key players in the mystery surrounding Sarah's vanishing, no matter the cost. There was no turning back now. The true battle for his own redemption lay ahead. Little did he realize, however, that those he would confront next were already watching, waiting for him to make his move. Jake stepped out of the cafe, the weight of Clara's warning heavy on his mind. The sun was setting now, casting an orange hue that served as a stark contrast to the turmoil within him. He needed a plan, a strategy that would not only protect himself but also reveal the truth behind Sarah's disappearance without igniting buried resentments. Max tugged at the leash, breaking his concentration. The dog was always in tune with Jake's emotions, reminding him of the grounding power of simple companionship. With each step, the streets began to blur into a collage of residents and shadow, a reminder that behind each door might lie untold stories, perhaps even answers. He ambled along the neighborhood, trying to focus on the tasks ahead. The briefcase felt heavier, as if it were straining under the weight of the secrets it contained. Pivotal decisions loomed. He could continue to excavate the truth or step back and preserve the status quo. The idea of silence began to gnaw at his conscience. In a moment of boldness, he decided to make a stop at the community library. It was a modest building on the edge of town, but it housed archives of stories that connected the past and present. If there were historical documents, perhaps there were also records about Sarah, articles written at the time of her disappearance, or even police reports he could access. As he entered the library, the familiar scent of aged paper and wood enveloped him, a soothing but haunting reminder of time standing still. The librarian, an elderly woman named Mrs. Whitaker, looked up from her desk and gave him a gentle smile. "Jake, dear. It's been a while. Looking for something specific?" Her voice was warm, but Jake could see the hint of concern in her eyes. "I need to do some research on, events from a few years back," he replied, his heart racing at the thought of exposing the tender threads of history. "Anything you have on Sarah Robinson?" Mrs. Whitaker's smile faltered. "That was a tragic time for our community." She hesitated, clearly weighing her words against the sensitivity of the subject. "I'll see what I can find." At her direction, Jake delved into the stacks of newspapers and local reports, his fingers trembling slightly as he flipped through the old articles. He read about fundraisers held in Sarah's name, candlelight vigils, and community efforts that slowly faded into memory. Each clipping revealed a layer of grief and, curiously, hints of contention, a friction beneath the surface of civic honor. Hours passed as he pieced together the timeline surrounding Sarah's case. The more he learned, the more he recognized the patterns of denial and anger woven through the lines. The community's grief felt palpable, but so did the prevailing silence. Along with this nagging thought came a dawning realization: uncovering the truth would require confronting more than just dusty documents and aging witnesses. Jake noticed a pile of confidential case files in a locked cabinet labeled Unsolved Mysteries. Was it feasible to gain access? The idea sparked an urgency within him. This was not just about Sarah, it signified his own reckoning, a confrontation with lingering guilt and confusion. Convinced it was time to challenge authority, Jake approached Mrs. Whitaker again. "What's the protocol for accessing police records? I feel it could help bring clarity." "Those are sensitive files, Jake. The authorities are often protective. It's best to tread lightly," she cautioned, yet the spark of curiosity lit in her eyes suggested she understood his intentions. "Understood." He nodded, resolved to leverage connections in the town, however tenuous they might be. Maybe he could enlist the help of someone who had been involved back when tragedy struck. As he left the library, an unsettling energy coursed through him. The friendly little town now felt as if it were shifting beneath his feet, a living tapestry revealing clusters of secrets. The path ahead might be treacherous, but he was prepared to navigate it. Yet just as he thought he could steady himself, a figure emerged from the shadows at the library's entrance, someone he recognized, someone who had once cherished the memories of Sarah, too. Their eyes met, a connection built on lingering pain and strife. "Jake, we need to talk," came the low, urgent whisper. The pull of his past and the urgency of the present collided, drawing Jake back toward yet another pivotal confrontation. What was this person hiding, and how did they fit into the puzzle he was desperate to solve? The next step in his journey teetered dangerously on the precipice of revelation. "Who are you?" Jake's heart pounded as he recognized the familiar face now distorted by time and grief. It was Ethan, Sarah's closest friend throughout their childhood. The last time they had spoken, time felt endless, the weight of joy and the carefree laughter of youth surrounded them. But now, Ethan's presence was suffused with an intensity that made Jake's stomach twist. "There's no time for explanations. Just follow me." Ethan's eyes darted back toward the library entrance, anxiety lacing his words. There was urgency in his tone, a desperation that made Jake hesitate just a moment longer, wrestling with the instinct to comply versus the anchor of suspicion. "Why should I trust you?" Jake's voice came out sharper than intended, the past and its secrets coiling around him like an insidious fog. "I'm here to help you find the truth, Jake," Ethan implored, his voice lowering further. "The truth about Sarah. But I can't talk here." Every instinct within Jake screamed at him to drill deeper, to interrogate Ethan's motives, yet the palpable urgency in the air urged him forward. After a moment, he nodded, silently agreeing. They walked briskly to a small park at the rear of the library, a hidden alcove painted in gold by the setting sun. The vibrant colors felt jarring against the weight of their conversation. Jake's resolve tightened, every word exchanged now could potentially unravel the threads leading back to Sarah. "I know things you might not have considered," Ethan began, glancing around to ensure they were alone. "After she disappeared, I couldn't just sit and grieve like everyone else. I searched for answers. And?" Jake pressed, each question a step deeper into the labyrinth of their shared past. Ethan shifted, raking a hand through his hair. "I found information, clues that lead us somewhere specific." "Did you know Sarah was involved with someone?" His eyes bore into Jake's, searching for a reaction. "That's a stretch, Ethan. She was my friend, too. I would have known." The denial slipped easily from Jake's lips, but he could feel in his bones the quirks of truth hiding beneath. Ethan jutted his chin in defiance. "You always saw what you wanted to see. I'm talking about a guy named Mark who was new in town around that time. They were close. I think he knows something about what happened." "Mark?" The name rattled through Jake's mind, dredging up fragmented memories. Hadn't it been whispered in the background? Had he brushed it aside in his search for clarity? Now, it hung heavy between them, a thread waiting to be pulled. "We need to find him," Ethan insisted, voice low but resonating with certainty. "I tried, but he vanished. No one seems to know where he went after everything. You can't just throw around names like that." Jake's frustration bubbled, but as he scanned Ethan's face, he felt the grounding weight of an unresolved conflict looming larger. "Where do you think we even begin?" "I've got leads," Ethan replied, his demeanor scarcely wavering. But confronting him could stir up something volatile. "It isn't just our past, there are still people invested in keeping this hidden." The implications fell thick and fast, the air around them became dense with possibility and tension. Jake stood silent, the depth of Ethan's words echoed long after he had spoken. Jake had always believed in adherence to truth, but now the line blurred. Was he prepared to face whatever shadows lingered in the wake of Sarah's absence? Determination bubbled within him as he made a mental map, recalling the echoes of their childhood laughter, Sarah's carefree spirit, always bright against the gray. A clock was ticking, and each second turned the haunting into urgency. "I'll do it," Jake finally declared, his voice steady, wrapped in a resolve forged through denial and guilt. "But we must be careful. I won't jeopardize anyone else's happiness for the sake of finding answers." "Agreed." Ethan's nod came with a renewed respect, a flicker of hope igniting between them. "Then let's move." As the two men exited the park, the tension began to rise, a struggle compressed within the fragile threads of their intentions. With every step toward discovering what had happened to Sarah, they braced themselves for the potential fallout of their pursuit. But as they rounded the corner, Jake's cell phone buzzed violently in his pocket. A new message. The sender's name pushed his blood cold. Clara. He could only imagine the urgency of her information, the kind that could threaten their entire quest for truth. "Let us stop here," he said, adjusting their course. "I need to check this. It could change everything." With that, they paused on the bustling sidewalk, knowing well that the unraveling of their investigation had just begun. Jake pulled out his phone, his hand trembling slightly as he swiped to unlock the screen. The notification felt electric beneath his fingers, a beckoning call from Clara that demanded immediate attention. The words blinked to life, offering a mix of tension and anticipation. "Jake, we need to talk. I know something about Sarah." His breath hitched, and a rush of conflicting emotions washed over him. Clara had always been the one to deliver difficult revelations, a backbone of pragmatism, often unyielding. Now, her message felt like a lifeline and a chain binding him to memories he was desperate to navigate. He glanced at Ethan, whose eyes were studying him, each blink a silent question to decipher the sudden pallor on Jake's face. "Let me guess," Ethan said, the edge of impatience creeping into his voice. "It's related. What does she know?" Jake hesitated, grappling with the weight of his next move. Should he share everything? Should he burden Ethan with another flicker of hope, or worse, another disappointment? But the truth was, he couldn't afford to keep secrets while chasing the shadows of Sarah's past. "Clara may have information about Mark," Jake finally admitted, the words spilling out despite the caution that gripped him. Ethan's brow furrowed. "Then let us hear it. What do you need to decide?" The sidewalk thrummed with life around them. Strangers walked past, oblivious to the turmoil stirring in their small island of intensity. Clenching his phone tightly, Jake felt the gnawing pull of responsibility. Clara handled her information with precision, and he forced himself to remember her strength. This was a woman who might hold a key to unraveling the reality of what had happened to Sarah. "Meet me at our old spot," Jake typed back, knowing she'd understand that location meant the swing set where they spent countless afternoons. He felt a rush of sentiments clash within him, recalling days of innocence that seemed impossibly distant. His thumb hovered over the screen, an instinctive impulse to delay the conversation, fight or flight kicking in. A sense of fear trickled in. Would her details deepen Jake's resolve or fracture it with doubts he couldn't afford? The possibility of confrontation with Mark loomed larger every second spent away from Clara's insights. "Jake," Ethan nudged him back to the present. "Time isn't on our side. Whatever she shares, we need to act quickly. Sitting here scrambles the urgency." "Yes, you're right." Jake scoffed at himself. He kept circling the same thoughts, tethered by nostalgia rather than focusing on the path ahead. Realizing this wasn't solely about the past, but a need to reclaim control over his present, he squared his shoulders. The choice cut deeper than he expected: protect his emotions or embrace the heartache of the truth. In that moment, Jake recognized something pivotal about himself. He couldn't continue living in the world of memories without taking the risk of facing the present. "Let us go," he insisted, transforming that resolve into action. "We'll meet Clara, and whatever she says, we'll address it. No more dodging the hard questions." Ethan's nod hung between them a moment, a tacit understanding forged in the unresolved tension surrounding Sarah's fate. As they navigated through the throngs of people, Jake felt urgency morph into determination, pulling him towards potential clarity. Every step along this city block felt like inching toward an answer, surfacing the pressure and promise of choices yet to come. Their feet shuffled toward the park, where memories of laughter were wedged into the fabric of the landscape, pulled threadbare by loss. Jake's mind raced with images, and he feared that each encounter would deepen the scar left by Sarah's disappearance. As they approached the swing set, Jake's gaze locked onto the familiar creaky chains, only now haunted by expectation and the fear of that unpredictability. What more would Clara unveil? The anticipation coiled tightly in his gut, ready to spring into a revelation or enter the realm of once unthinkables. Just as they reached the edge of The swings, Jake's heart lurched. Clara stood there, her face tight, drenched in the weight of what she was about to share. The air thickened around them, pregnant with possibility. His voice barely emerged through the dread spinning in his mind. "Clara, you said you know something about Sarah. What is it?" The question hung in the air, mirrored in Clara's expression, brittle and resolute, shimmering with secrets ready to explode. Something profound was about to shift in their quest for truth, and Jake braced himself for impact. Clara's next words would be a turning point, one that would either stitch together their uncertainties or unravel the fragile fabric of hope that had sustained him thus far. Clara took a deep breath, steeling herself as she began to speak. "Jake, I've been digging into the file Mark left behind when he vanished. It wasn't just about the money or the lies he spun." Her words hung in the air, a resignation etched into her features. "It's about Sarah, and it's more complicated than we ever thought." Jake's brow furrowed, a surge of adrenaline coursing through him. With each passing moment, the remnants of his hope clashed against the shards of doubt. "What do you mean? What did you find?" The urgency sharpened his tone. "There are connections," Clara replied, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Connected people, criminals, Jake. Mark was in deeper than we realized. Sarah might have been a pawn in something far bigger. Someone has been tracking their moves." She shifted, her body language revealing her own wariness. "You know Mark's background. He was always looking out for himself, but this is different." As Jake listened, he felt his world narrowing to this moment, yet broadening with fear. What did Mark know? What could have turned a missing child's case into a tangled web of deceit? "Clara, if he had ties to criminals, why wouldn't he come to us? Why leave?" Clara clenched her jaw, her brows knitting closer together. "That's the part that scares me, Jake. Sarah could have had a role to play, but we don't know what it entailed. And now he's gone. Every second we waste holds the potential to lose our chance at finding out what really happened." The weight of Clara's revelation pressed down on him like a storm cloud, forcing the air from his lungs. Internally, conflicting instincts battled: fear, protective instincts, and the simmering need for truth. Every question spiraled in his mind, simultaneously encouraging him toward action and paralyzing him with uncertainty. "What do we do now?" he asked, realizing that his voice trembled. It was more than just personal stakes. He stood on the precipice of something that required taking risks he had felt ill-equipped to confront. Clara's gaze softened for a fleeting moment. "We press forward. We need to find more information. I've contacted an old friend who has connections in law enforcement. They might help guide us through what Mark was entangled in." "But Jake," her eyes bore into his, "we need to be cautious. This could get dangerous." His chest tightened as he reflected on their path forward. Clara wasn't just offering a pathway, she was awakening the warrior inside him, the resolve that had been buried beneath layers and layers of grief and powerlessness. "I understand. We've faced loss and shadows before, but this?" He paused, gathering strength from the memories of Sarah, the joy and laughter that had once filled the void of their lives. "This is worth any risk." Ethan, quiet until now, stepped closer, positioning himself as a foot soldier in this mission. "You're not alone in this. Whatever it takes, we're in it together." The solidarity in Ethan's words sparked a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. Jake felt reinvigorated, purpose coursing through him at the thought of finally taking tangible steps toward reclaiming the past and unearthing the truth about Sarah. "Let's get to work. Time isn't on our side." As they strategized their next move, mining through Clara's information, Jake couldn't ignore the inner metamorphosis occurring. No longer was he merely a man riddled with grief, he was evolving into a figure of action and tenacity. Each decision he made propelling him further away from the shadows of doubt toward the light of resolve. But as they began to outline their approach, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching them, the shadows of their past stretching beyond what they could see. The web of deception surrounding Sarah was more tangled than they ever imagined, and they were no closer to shedding light on its true nature. Suddenly, the rustling of leaves nearby jolted Jake from his thoughts. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, his body tensing as he locked eyes with Clara and Ethan. They exchanged worried glances, a fresh anxiety creeping in, the question hanging uncertainly in the air: who else was involved in this pursuit for truth, and what lengths would they go to protect their secrets? Jake's heart thumped furiously in his chest, adrenaline pumping through his veins as he turned to the direction of the rustling sound. The woods surrounding them felt oppressive, the thick canopy of trees casting heavy shadows. He dared not say it out loud, but the unease gnawing at him had the familiar taste of dread. "Clara," he began, his voice low, "what if someone is following us? What if they already know we're onto something?" Ethan shifted uncomfortably, his earlier bravado now causing him to second-guess their decisions. The unspoken fear hung heavily in the air, thick enough to cut with a knife. Clara briefly scanned the area, her instincts kicking in, but she didn't falter. "If we're being watched, we need to keep moving. We can't allow fear to paralyze us." With a newfound determination, Jake nodded, aware that this was the defining moment where he would either retreat into his past despair or surge forward into the unknown. "Right. Let us proceed carefully, but we can't lose our focus." They ventured deeper into the woods, the path ahead obscured by encroaching foliage. The darkening sky teased rain, a heavy mist clinging to their clothes as they moved. With every step, the tension coiled tighter inside him. Clara's knowledge about Mark's connections to potential criminals made the stakes precarious and personal. If she was right, they might be stepping into a danger that transcended their emotional battles. As they reached a clearing, Jake decided to break the silence, attempting to sift through the discord of thoughts swirling in his mind. "Clara, when you said we need to be cautious, what exactly did you mean? What are we facing?" Her lips pursed, a sign of inward contemplation. "We're dealing with people who have something to protect, Jake. If Mark had information that threatened them, there's no telling how far they'll go to avoid exposure. We need to find out what ties he had, and more importantly, where Sarah fits into this." Jake felt the beat of dread quickening, realizing the full weight of their investigation. This was no mere search for a lost child anymore. Their pursuit had morphed into a descent into a world teeming with threats disguised as shadows in the day. "So, it's not just about finding Mark then, it's about uncovering layers of corruption that could lead us into the heart of danger." Clara's nod was grim. "Exactly. But think about it. If we can pull the right threads, we might find a way to reinstate control over our narrative. It's essential to uncover the truth, not just for Sarah but for our sake, too." They started mapping out a plan, using Clara's information as a roadmap. Jake began to process how this endeavor was more than a quest, it was a transformative journey. Each time he took action, every choice he made, he felt the shackles of regret loosening their grip. The fear was there, wrestling against his resolve, but the pull of discovery was far stronger. It propelled him into proactive territory. Just as they took a moment to regroup, Clara's phone vibrated, cutting through the tension like a knife. She glanced at the screen and her expression shifted. "It's my contact. They're ready to share what they know about Mark." In that moment, Jake sensed power gathering around their movement. For the first time, they were not just bystanders but architects of their destiny. Clara's decision to reach out had catalyzed more than answers. It had ignited a spark within Jake, revealing his untapped potential. "Let us hear what they have to say," Jake urged. "But we need to stay alert. We can't afford any missteps now." The urgency of their surroundings circled like vultures overhead, and no matter how tightly they held on to their purpose, they could feel the ground beneath them shifting. Every piece of information could unravel the tapestry that had cloaked their past and thrust them into confrontation with hidden antagonists. As they prepared to follow through on Clara's lead, a chilling thought crossed Jake's mind. If they were being watched, what would the unknown figure do once they realized that Jake and the others were closing in on the truth? Behind the looming trees, a pair of eyes flickered in their direction, sharp as glass. The game was afoot, and their next move might just lead them into an abyss they hadn't anticipated. The thrill of pursuit mingled with chilling caution, leaving Jake to question if he truly possessed the strength to confront whatever awaited them. Before they could process the implications of this notion, the unmistakable sound of footsteps approached from the shadows. Jake felt the temperature drop around him as the steps grew louder, reverberating through the thick underbrush. Each echoing crunch heightened his senses, compelling him to confront his mortality and the fragility of his mission. Clara and Ethan shared a silent glance, a quick unspoken agreement to prepare for whatever emerged. "Stay calm," Jake whispered, trying to stifle the tremor in his voice. He had to be the rock, the one who held it together in this moment of looming uncertainty. They had traveled too far to turn back now, and failure was not an option. The shadows parted slightly, revealing a tall figure, cloaked in the dim light filtering through the trees. Jake's heart raced, not just from fear, but from a strange thrill of empowerment. This was the moment he'd envisioned. The figure stepped forward, fists clenched, revealing defined features and a hardened gaze. "Who are you?" Jake demanded, his voice steadier than he felt. The man's expression remained inscrutable, but Jake could see the tension coiling in his muscles, as if he were prepared to bolt or fight. "I could ask you the same," the man retorted, eyes flinty with suspicion. "You're trespassing, digging into places you shouldn't." Jake felt anger surge within him, battling the instinctual fear twisting in his gut. "We're looking for Mark. We have reason to believe he is connected to something dangerous, and we won't back down. You know him, don't you?" For a moment, the stranger seemed to ponder Jake's words, his guarded stance relaxing ever so slightly. Then, without warning, he glanced back over his shoulder into the woods, as if sensing a threat lurking behind them. "Listen carefully," the man said, lowering his voice. "You're too deep in this to turn back now, and I can help you, but you need to understand the risks. There are powerful people who will do anything to keep their secrets hidden. You're meddling in things you can't imagine, and they won't hesitate to silence you." Jake processed these words, feeling the weight of reality press down on him like the thick mist surrounding them. This was a pivotal moment, a crossroads in his investigation and his personal quest for control over his life. He wanted answers, and in turn, to be the master of his fate. But he also needed to evaluate the implications of proceeding forward. "Wait," Clara interjected, addressing the stranger directly. "If you're willing to help, we have to know we can trust you. What do you know about Mark? And why should we believe you?" The man hesitated, casting a wary glance towards the shadows. "Because I've seen what happens to those who dig too deep. Mark has information tied to a case that involves more than just a lost child. There are men out there who would kill to protect their interests. What you uncover could put your lives at risk." Fear gnawed at Jake again but was quickly replaced by an overwhelming sense of purpose. This was not just about Sarah anymore, it was about him reclaiming his agency, dismantling his lingering despair, and proving to himself that he could confront the darkness that had shadowed his past. He straightened his back, taking a step closer to the stranger. "Tell us everything you know. We're ready to face whatever's in the way no matter the cost. We need to find Sarah and get to the heart of this thing." As the man opened his mouth to respond, a distant sound interrupted sharp voices emerging through the trees. "They're coming," the man warned, urgency creeping into his tone. "You need to decide now. Will you follow me, or will you take your chances with them?" The choice loomed before Jake, and in that moment, he recognized the true essence of his journey. He was no longer merely seeking someone else's ghost, he was fighting to define his own destiny against hostile forces. As the footsteps neared and the tension crackled in the air, Jake felt the stakes rise. Would he possess the courage to leap into the unknown? Would he trust this stranger at the threshold of danger? And as the encounter reached its boiling point, the voice of resolve within him whispered fiercely. This was his moment to rise or fall. Jake's decision crystallized almost instantly. He could feel the pulse of urgency quickening in his veins, a response to both fear and an undeniable sense of purpose. He stepped forward, heart pounding, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. The prospect of following the stranger was daunting, yet the flames of determination within him burned even brighter. "Lead the way," he declared, his voice cutting through the thick tension. Clara shot him a worried look, but he offered her a reassuring nod. This was not just about Sarah, it was a chance to reclaim the control that had slipped through his fingers, a moment to prove to himself that he was capable of confronting the unknown. With a swift turn, the stranger beckoned them into the wilds. The shadows swallowed them as they stumbled through the underbrush, Jake's mind racing. Each step mirrored a push against the boundaries of his previously rigid existence. No longer originating solely from safety, his resolve thrived on the grid of uncertainty. "Listen," the stranger said, his voice echoing faintly in the dim light, "the men pursuing you are relentless, and they have resources at their disposal that you cannot imagine. Trust is a commodity you cannot afford lightly." Jake understood. Each word was a reminder of his own vulnerability but also the stakes he was determined to face. They rounded a bend in the trail, and suddenly, a clearing opened up before them, revealing a dilapidated cabin cloaked in shadows, their sanctuary against the approaching threat. "Here," the man gestured, urgency crashing in on his words. "Inside. We'll be safer here." They ducked into the cabin just as voices erupted in the underbrush. Time would tell if they had made the right choice, but Jake felt a flicker of adrenaline course through him, the ignition of a fighter spirit he had nearly forgotten. This wasn't just a rescue mission, it had evolved into a reckoning with his deepest fears. Inside, the stranger began to speak. "Mark is an operative caught between two worlds he didn't intend to straddle. He's been digging up secrets involving organ trafficking and counterfeit messages that tie back to twisted networks." Each word painted a larger canvas of globalization's darkest paths, and Jake found his thoughts in tumult. Could he be ready to dive into such a sinister world? The sound of footsteps outside grew louder, and with it came the tangible pressure of time slipping through their fingers. Clara clasped Jake's arm tightly, anxiety masking her normally confident demeanor. He could feel her fear grounding him, pulling him back to the moment of reality versus that spiral of escalating risk. "What could we possibly do against all of that?" Clara whispered, her voice thick with worry. Jake took a deep breath, assessing their options amidst the growing weight of responsibility he felt on his shoulders. "We find the truth." It felt electrifying to say, but also terrifyingly naive. Could he really believe that? "Finding Mark is only the beginning," the stranger added. "You need to understand what you're handling here. This is not just dangerous, it is designed to shatter people like you." A wave of doubt washed over him, coupled with conflicting emotions. Would he risk further? What if they were already too deep, caught in a web from which they could not escape? The questions nagged at him, yet they fueled his determination to confront the lurking enemies outside. Then bring it on, he resolved, slowly discovering the parts of himself that had always been buried beneath self-doubt and isolation. "Whatever it takes, I want that truth. No more running." The man nodded, respect gleaming in his expression. The air thickened with a newfound energy as Jake's mission morphed from merely seeking Sarah to confronting a cycle of darkness that he could essentially challenge. This was a fight for clarity and agency, and he was prepared to stand firm. "Are you ready?" the stranger asked, pulling them back to the reality they could affect. The cabin creaked ominously, matching the pounding of Jake's heart. "As ready as we'll ever be," he declared, determination intertwining with the anxiety of the task ahead. Just then, the voices grew closer, punctuating the tense atmosphere and snapping Jake into a resolute stance. He was ready to confront whatever awaited them and face the complexities that lurked not just in the shadows, but within himself. In that moment, he became acutely aware, the true confrontation was not just with the haunted past they aimed to illuminate, but with the courageous man lurking within who was finally willing to step into the light. But Jake's resolve was abruptly shattered when the sound of something heavy hit the cabin door, a harbinger of the conflict that awaited them. In his core, he could feel the stakes rising, urging him to prepare for the fight ahead. This was just the beginning. The real battle for understanding, for truth, for Sarah's fate had not yet even started. Jake took a steadying breath as the cabin door shuddered under the impact of the weighty force on the other side. Every second felt like a year. He could feel the urgency closing in on them. The chaotic swirl of emotions inside him, fear, desperation, and a flicker of resolve coalesced into one vital truth: there was no turning back now. "Get ready," Jake said quietly, his voice even, a protective instinct surging forward. Clara and Ethan positioned themselves next to him, aligning themselves for the impending confrontation. The stranger's eyes glinted with a mix of apprehension and anticipation. Their fate was drawn irrevocably into the interplay of secrets and shadows surrounding Sarah's disappearance. It was more than just rage or fear that spurred him now. Anger flowed through him like charging electricity, and at its core rested an unyielding desire for justice, not just for Sarah but for every moment trapped in a silence he was ready to break. The suffocating weight of the past clung to him like a fog, infused with urgency. "Whatever happens next, we stick together," Jake affirmed, almost as if the collective strength of their resolve could combat the dark unknown hammering at their door. To his surprise, he felt Clara's hand wrap around his, an unspoken promise binding them. There was deep acknowledgement in her eyes, an understanding that they were stepping into a dimension fraught with danger but rich with the potential for truth. Each of them was evolving, cast into roles they had never anticipated. The force upon the door intensified. It buckled, making Jake's pulse race with a mixture of adrenaline and fear. Instinct urged him forward, beckoning him into the unknown haziness of conflict, but he forced himself to take a steadying breath, remembering the reason they came together in the first place: to reclaim their narrative from the clutches of silence. He could feel the simmering flames of determination fuel and fill the room, igniting every one of them with purpose. As the door splintered open, Jake squared his shoulders, bracing himself for whatever assailant emerged. But issuing forth were not menacing shadows, rather a figure he recognized. It was Mark, a disheveled, frantic version of the boy from their youth, now marred by disillusionment. The tension in the room shifted, coiling tighter as the realization dawned. "Help!" Mark shouted, urgency echoing in his voice as he stumbled inside. "They're coming for me." Then, a cacophony of footsteps echoed from outside, rising above the rustling trees. Jake felt the gravity of the situation sharpen as Clara and Ethan exchanged glances, bewildered but anchored by the convergence of their paths. There was an undeniable vulnerability etched in Mark's features that sparked empathy deep within Jake. This wasn't he simply a boy who had vanished. This was a man plunged into a web of danger, desperate for reprieve, the key to light at the end of the tunnel they had sought. "Mark. What happened?" Jake stepped closer, urgency in his voice as disbelief wrestled with understanding. Each question unraveled the delicate fabric of unknown complexities. "Sarah, she was," Mark began, his brow beaded with sweat. "She was involved in something she didn't ask for. I was trying to protect her. I didn't know how to keep her safe from them. But they forced my hand, forced her away." Another crash resounded from outside. The urgency escalated as adversaries closed in. The fates of all hung precariously on the edge of this encounter. The shadows whispered chaos, yet Jake felt a transforming strength surge through him, evolved from his journey into understanding. "Mark, you need to tell us everything. We can help you help Sarah. But you have to trust us." Jake's words, grounded and compelling, galvanized not only the path ahead but also the surge of hope surging through Clara and Ethan, igniting within them a united front. Mark nodded, fear-stricken but resolute. "You don't know what you're getting into," he managed, desperation edging his voice. "But if we don't confront this together, we're finished. They'll keep coming. You need to prepare." In that moment, Jake recognized the full weight of his transformation. This mission was not just about confronting the shadows of a lost girl, it was an awakening of his conviction, a willingness to redefine who he could be in the face of turmoil. Unified as guardians of truth, they stood ready to dismantle the intricate darkness woven into their lives. "Then let us breathe a fire of defiance against them," Jake declared, his voice steady through the cauldron of fear swirling around them. "We lead with our purpose and find Sarah no matter the risk." That sparked a ripple of confirmation in their hearts, the bond strengthening among the trio as they lifted their heads in defiance. No longer bound by guilt or fear, they drew on that shared resolve to confront the encroaching darkness. As the crunch of approaching footsteps came closer, a blend of alarm and determination coursed through Jake. They would face the storm together, they would uncover the layers of corruption threatening to envelop their town and, in broader strokes, their very identities. With determination buzzing at his fingertips, Jake took a step forward, ready to lead his companions into the fray ahead, prepared to charge into the heart of danger, convinced that they would arrive on the other side true to themselves, true to their pursuit, true in their quest for Sarah's elusive light. As they braced for the inevitable clash, they entered the fray armed not only with each other but with the immeasurable strength of agency, a tribute not only to Sarah but to their collective redemption. This was it. Their battle for recognition and truth had begun. And in that moment, Jake finally recognized the fierce freedom that had evaded him for so long, the raw power of choosing purpose over despair, the courage to shed the darkness, and step boldly into his dawn. Now was the time to rise. No more waiting, no more standing in the shadows. Jake was ready. And he would settle for nothing less than uncovering the truth. It was their time to take charge, reclaim their lives, and face the storm with solidarity, their pivotal moment in the shadows defined by choice, courage, and a relentless pursuit for reclamation. The door crashed open fully, and as a new wave of intensity surged toward them, Jake remained poised, conviction radiating within him, ready to confront the confrontation that beckoned, ready to unveil the truth. And as he did, the first taste of victory ignited the path ahead. The narrative was theirs to write, and it began with the firm belief in both light and justice. Now, the ultimate question rang prominently in his mind: could he achieve it, conquer it, champion it, and emerge not only the protector of the past but the architect of a brighter future? This was resilience written large, a chance to rise beyond fear, claiming victory, and weaving back together scattered remnants of a forgotten life. Were they prepared for the adventure? Helplessness was no longer an option, the light of truth was worth every step they would take forward. As they prepared for what awaited, Jake embraced the storm of uncertainty, finally understanding that sometimes to find the truth, one must be willing to stand firm against the winds of chaos. And in that pursuit, he found himself reborn into the fullness of agency, unwavering in his commitment to vindicate a lost child and define a space for healing in a world riddled with shadows. With resolve entwining around them, they faced the darkness, unified in purpose, ready to rewrite their fates. Let the battle begin. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that empower and inspire. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover these transformative narratives. We can make a difference together. Comment your reactions and theories about this electrifying conclusion. Every perspective counts. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this gripping finale. Don't wait even one more second to spread the message of resilience and hope through our journey. Your support is crucial to keep these stories alive. Let's amplify the power of personal overcoming stories.